Welcome, everybody. I'm Cindy Myers, and tonight's webinar is on animals and emotions, and we're going to talk about uh, the fear response, especially the aggression, the fight response to the fight or flight response system. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box. I'm not going to be able to see the chat box while my screen is full display, but write it down so you don't forget it. If you're like me, I forget. My Velcro doesn't stick very good. So put it in the chat box and I'll come back to it as soon as the webinar part, the presentation part is done. So I want to make sure I get to your questions. All right, before we get going, just a little, well, I already talked about that. So here, before we get going, my disclaimer, in emergencies, please call your veterinarian. But what I can do for you in a state of emergency is provide energy support for your pet and for you, because I know they get very anxious, you get anxious, and we want to clear as much and rebalance their system so that their natural healing abilities can work alongside what your vet can do for them. So it definitely is a team approach in an emergency situation. And like I just discussed with y'all, if you have an aggressive animal, it's really important that you have a qualified trainer working alongside you. I'm not a certified dog trainer or animal trainer. So it's really important to have that expertise working together as a team. So with that, and we'll get more into detail on that because that's tonight's topic. And we'll go in more into my background throughout the presentation. So here, let's get right into the topic because this has really been an important one. This has been coming up a lot the last couple of weeks with a number of you. So this, when I get patterns and similar issues happening regularly, it is time to have a bigger discussion. There's something more that either needs to be shared with you all or something that I need to learn myself. So this is such an important topic. Dealing with the fear response system, especially the anger or aggressive. And it's true for humans as well as our animals. It's just that our animals don't have the language that we have, which actually can make their response be even more extreme because they're frustrated. They can't express what is fearful to them to us so that we can understand it better. I got a dog playing behind me. Typical, as soon as I start. So anyway, so let's get into this topic. So the fear response system, also known as the fight or flight system, is very reactionary. And that's the way it's been designed from probably the beginning of time. It is really important that we all of us species have that. It's called the reptilian brain because we actually share it with the reptiles that have that is their main part of their brain. They don't have as much, if they have any cognitive brain, it's very small. So, but we all share that it's that need to survive, that survival instinct. So it is completely shared. And it means that in a threatful situation, we get to choose, do we run, do we freeze, or do we fight? Those are the three basic ones. There's other responses, but those are the most common and most basic ones that our system chooses from. And it needs to be reactionary because if something is coming out to attack, then we don't want to go into our cognitive brain to figure out what exactly we have to do, the flow chart of things. That would take too long. So it's very reactionary, which is why in the aggression response to it, if the animal learns to be an aggressive as its basic go-to response in a threatful situation or a scary situation, they're triggered or upset about something. It's so reactionary, it's hard to interrupt it because they just go right into their fight response. And that's why it's really hard to modify it. It's actually the hardest one to modify of the three. The run, the freeze, those are, I have a lot bigger success. I have to admit, I have a bigger success rate on those two because there's an easier way to interrupt it before before it happens. The freeze is the easiest. The running is a little bit harder because they take off, right? They take off, and if we can contain them somehow, the pacing can be a response to the running area, but so we can kind of get a hold of them. But if it's a fight, they instantly go and, snarl, snap, bite, get into a fight. That's really hard to interrupt them without anybody getting hurt. So that's why that one is really, really hard to interrupt. And so that's one of the reasons why. It's also learned response. So for whatever reason, something happened that was frightening. It could have happened at as kittens or puppies, early life. They could have that be a response to something. Maybe a litter mate bites them and it hurts, and they responded with a bite, something, a growl or a mew and a smack and a hit or a bite and an aggressive response, and the other backed off. So now it learned that when I behave that way, I get what I want. I get you to back off. Okay, if I feel threatened, if I respond with anger and reply and the others back off, then I learned that this is a good way of handling um, an, a challenging situation, a fear-based situation. If it's uncorrected, then this habit can be created over and over and over. And so it can start very, very young of age, which again, then it's harder to modify that behavior. Or they could have an experience later in life. They could be an adult and be attacked, or have something that was really scary that happened. It could be at a dog park and another dog attacks them. And so now they've learned to be more protective about themselves. They could learn that maybe they didn't have an experience around a lot of different people. And so now that's a scary thing. And so when they bare their teeth or snap or get upset, the people go away because that's not something you'd want to be around. Now they learned that, hey, this works. This worked. This behavior worked to get what they wanted, which is the other to go away. And again, because this is a reactionary system, their habit goes click right into it. So whatever is fearful, they can go click, and now I'm going to be aggressive. So what their trigger is can be very different. So whatever the trigger is, for whether and again, it doesn't matter what the species is. It's whatever they feel is a threat to them. They've learned that anger is the right response. So again, that's why it's really important to have a team approach between you as the day-to-day dealing with it, a trainer that really can teach you a new way of working with your pet to hopefully learn what those triggers are, interrupt it, provide some measure, some other way of containing or redirection, or interrupting it before, best way, stop it before it happens. And then again, using the energy work to clear whatever the trapped emotions that created the trigger in the first place. We want to get rid of those trapped emotions. And we'll talk a little bit more on why that's important. So, and right now, we're going to talk about right now, and it's called these trapped emotions and a threshold. This threshold is really important in understanding why I also insist on having a trainer, because you know what, I could clear trapped emotions and it seems to fix, quote unquote, fix the problem, until all of a sudden, it's like, I like this picture of this kitty, because they can be like this perfect angel, this perfect sitting on this angel, the saint's head, and they're in balance. They're really a wonderful animal. But what we don't see, what's not visible to us, is that our pets can also develop stress throughout the day, and that can build up and build up and build up. And there's like this threshold that all of us can tolerate without us, having a behavioral or physical reaction to it. But once we exceed what we can tolerate, once we exceed that threshold, then a behavior can change. So all of a sudden, this fluffy, cute little kitty, it can become, spawn of the demon. It can come out and have really bad behavior all of a sudden. Something happens, and it's because they've exceeded that threshold. And what I can't tell you is how close we are to that threshold. And again, I can clear stuff and give you some patting, and you think all's good, and we kind of forget. And I'm guilty of this too. We forget that all's going well, but in the meantime, stuff's happening, more stresses in the environment, and pretty soon our pets exceeded that threshold, and they've got and they're going to display it in either a physical problem and or a behavioral one. They need to show it. It's going to come out. And it's true for us humans as well. It's true across species. So our goal here is then to work together. So it's very important to get rid of those trapped emotions. That gives you hopefully some space and time then to help teach your pet what you do want them to do. And to teach them that communication too my intuitive communication with them can tell them exactly what we do want with them. And then you're telling them when they do it right, that feels good. And the one thing our pets are really good at, and way better than we humans actually, is if something feels better, because that fear response doesn't usually feel good. So if we can teach them and get that into their system that this feels better, then they tend to choose what feels better than than the choice of something that doesn't feel good. So we have to really get that integrated into their psyche, into their behavior, so that is a consistent thing. Because if they run or freeze, there's nothing bad that happens out, and hopefully nothing too terrible happens out of that result. When it's an aggressive issue, then they bite, then they attack. So that's something that is dangerous. So that's why, because of the danger aspect of this, it's really, really important that we work at it as a team. So here's some things that you can do for your pet, no matter what, no matter the issue, is one, to breathe. But for an aggressive thing, then the more information we have, the better. So do we have an idea what their triggers are? So observing, tracking, what happens when your pet has an incident? Try and go back and see what's happened, what's changed. You probably may not realize it, but sometimes the behavior or the physical issue can take up to a week later before it comes out. It isn't always immediate whenever the stressor happens. The 4th of July was a good example. In my household, I have a Tesla, my golden, that's probably seen playing in the background here. She gets super afraid during the fireworks, just really in a panic, gets the shakes, the whole bit. So she was fine. The next day, we got her through it. She was fine for about 3 or 4 days. Well, I think it was around day 5, she got a tummy issue. So it took 5 days for that adrenaline to really kick in or actually reduce. But she had so much adrenaline coursing through her body that she wound up having a physical issue where she got an upset tummy. And again, it was about 5 days later, and she just felt really crappy for about 12, 14 hours. So it can take that long from the amount of stress coming through. So any changes, that's why when I work with you, I kind of go, and they've had an incident, I like to go back and go, what might have triggered this? What built up to that? So that you can be aware that if maybe you're going on vacation, that's a big trigger, especially if you have a rescue animal and they have abandonment issues and attachment issues. It may take several days later, but that stress can come out, and then boop, they're going to have an incident of some sort. It could be faster. but it can take up to, I would say, a week, sometimes a little bit longer, but I would say on average, anywhere between 48 hours to a week is very common to see something come up in if it's an extremely stressful situation for your pet. The other stressors can be much more small, it could be little stresses, but those little stresses can build up over time. So it may not be a singular event, it could be smaller, multiple ones to get them over that threshold, or it can be a singular event like the 4th of July can just take them right over. So what we want to do is find again that a trainer that really understands aggression. And there's a couple different modalities that I like myself, but again, we want to find somebody that really is good at that, and they can teach you different ways. Sometimes it's just changing their body posture, changing their language. The animals love to communicate through their body. And a lot of times your pet is misinterpreting even another dog's or cat's message to them in their body language. They could just be misunderstanding something because, again, they're in that fight or flight response system. So they're kind of wired to being wary. So they're observing it as a threat when the other animal's going, I don't know what you're upset about. I was just going to come over and say hi. So it could be just a misunderstanding. And because they're not, so we have to teach them what body language means. So we have to position them in the correct body language. I'm not an expert at, and I'm not in the moment of being able to see that to help you either. And you really have to catch these experiences in the moment. So that's why, and somebody teaching you, so you know exactly what to do. You have the tools in your hip pocket to know exactly what to do for your pet. So again, teamwork is what we need in this situation. So what I would recommend for anybody that's going through this, we would need the full 45 minutes to kind of go over the full, so I can fully understand the issue. And I'm listening to things, not just with your stories, I'm listening both to your pet and behind, I'm looking for triggers or experiences that you may not be conscious of. So I'm listening at a deeper level of what's going on so that I can help guide you and advise you more clearly to specific to your situation. And that will take the whole time. And then I can refer lots of different, hopefully different, either people modalities that would fit your specific needs, as well as then helping to start removing the trapped emotions of your pet, rebalancing them, communicating to them, getting them geared up to really modify this behavior. And then you get a 15-minute follow-up, which is really important to keep that momentum. Again, I don't know how far we want to get them below that threshold. Sometimes I can clear and we're still over that threshold. I don't know how many sessions it can take to get us below the threshold. And we don't want it just below the threshold. We want padding, right? So we want that 15-minute then follow-up, because that 15-minute gives me a lot of information on where we're at on in that threshold. So if they have an instance quickly after that 45 minutes, I think, okay, we're still kind of probably over that threshold. If they don't have a reaction for 2-3 weeks, then I know that we had a little padding. So that's why that 15-minute gives me a lot of information that I can better suit you, and we can continue the healing and improving of the behavior. So future events, Saturday, I'm back on. We're going to get to keep the same time. I am taking the class with my dog Bailey. And so, but I'll be able to get home in time to keep everything the same time. So this Saturday, we're back on for a healing circle at our normal time at 12. Next Wednesday is just a healing circle, no webinar. And that'll be at the same time as tonight started, so 6 p.m. Pacific time. And then Saturday, we'll do another healing circle. The next webinar is August 10th. Can't believe we're already in August. How did that happen? It's amazing. This year flies by. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and we'll get into the Yeah, good. And so if you have any questions, because that was a big topic, so if you have any questions on it before we get going, otherwise we'll get right into some of the demos and releasing stuff for your pets and working with some of your animals. Any questions, you can unmute yourself or put it in the chat box when you're raising your hand, let me know. Jenny, go ahead.
I have a question. Hi, Cindy. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for all your information. You mentioned in there that the trapped emotion is chemicals, and I love to learn more about that. Is that a certain, like, does the chemical get absorbed to the body when the emotions are untrapped, or how does that work?
Sure. Well, to me, emotions are, again, is our brain creates a bunch of emotion all day. You know, we experience emotions all day, all night, even while we're dreaming. It's true for our pets. You can see them dreaming, and they have emotions as well. It's just they have a not as broad of a vocabulary, emotional vocabulary as an adult human. They're about the same as a child, but anybody who's seen a toddler have a temper tantrum, they can have really strong emotions. And what happens is these emotions, like energy is just uh, chemicals, carbon and oxygen and nitrogen and all those sciencey things that create whatever that emotion is. In this case, it's an emotion. It could be something else. But when you break it down into its molecular and atomic level, it's energy. You can equate it into energy. And that's what I pick up then, is that I can discern these different emotions based on that. But what we do then, it's way I see emotions then is kind of like food calories. We can eat so much food in a day, and if we exceed what we can burn off in a day, we gain, you know, that those calories land in our body someplace, right? And it becomes fat someplace. Well, it gets lodged in our body because we can't process out all those calories. It's same is true for emotions. The emotions have, again, we have, I read or I heard the other day that we have about 30,000 thoughts a day. So with every thought, usually an emotional equivalent. Every emotion, every thought has some chemical component to it. And so we have to be able to burn all that stuff off. So if we're under a lot of stress or our pets are under extra stress, anything that's extra and they can't burn it off, then those emotional calories have to go somewhere and they get stuck in our body. So they become trapped. And they have an electromagnetic component to them. So they can kind of track similar emotions. Once something gets stuck, then it's going to keep attracting and going into that spot. A lot of times they'll go right back to that same spot. So that becomes the physical weakness. It can become blocked energy. It inhibits the natural flow of our body. So anything, it acts like a little dam, and our natural energy flow just can't get to that spot. It'll go around it, and that becomes a weak area. So then, you know, a pain, a kidney issue, you know, it loves to land in organs, and certain emotions like certain organs. It attracts to those organs. So for humans, boy, early April, I get a lot of lower back. Anybody have any guesses on why? Tax time. So people who haven't done their taxes and are stressing over getting their taxes, they get lower back aches because that's where it just love money issues is usually second chakra, which is in the lower back. So then I get a lot of customers that I have to clear those trapped emotions and help them get going with their taxes. And then their backache goes away. So our pets then have that same thing. So they get trapped in our tissues, we store our issues in our tissues. And then we want to get rid of those trapped emotions so that we work with, and because of those emotions, uh, create that fear. And most of the negative emotions, let me back up, negative emotions move slower. I also pick up frequencies. I'm like a walking radar, and that's how I was trained. I was an electronic engineer working on radars. So now I am a radar. So I pick up the frequency distortions in your body, or in your pet's body in this case. And so wherever that distortion is, that's what I want to zap. And that's is where I don't know, I can't quite tell you, but how it works, because I'm not quite sure, but somehow I'm able to go in, identify those trapped emotions, and it's like best way I can picture it or describe it, it's like popping a little bubble, and those chemicals then release into the body. What the higher self tells me is how many I can release in a given setting. And so the body can then release it. I can't do an unlimited amount, because then, yes, it would just reabsorb back up. So the higher self tells me how much I can release. And again, I feel that in my body. I feel like a shift in the energy, and I feel things flowing. And that's usually when I'm told to stop. That's all. That's as far as we can go in that setting, in that situation. So that's why we have to do multiple sessions sometimes, and because every day we get more trapped emotions. So if there's always stress in the household, it's just trying to keep up with that threshold, and not, so then it's working with how do we change that stressful situation so that we can get you that padding too. So did that answer your question?
Let me unmute myself. Yes, thank you. That's helpful. Yeah, and it's a yes, that helps me.
On how I work and how I see things. So other healers might see things differently, but that's how I see them. Let's see. Okay. Any other questions? That was a great one. I usually cover that, but I was trying to get into the behavior on this one more than how energy works. But so at one time I skipped that part. That was the question. So I'm glad you asked it. Anybody else have any questions? All righty. Let's see. Well, Jenny, I think you gave me a pet, right? Did you send me a picture?
Yeah, I gave the goose, the little gosling, and
Oh,
then if there was time, my pet. Yep.
yeah, okay. So I'm gonna share your Gosling, because I do want to do that one. That one sounds like fun. We'll start with that one.
Yeah.
We'll start with dessert, because this is a fun one. So it's fun for me, may not be fun for you or the Gosling, but it's different than what I usually get. So tell us a little bit about this Gosling that lives with you.
So we have 5 acres, and this pond is probably about an acre. And there was a family of geese born and raised on the property. There was originally 7 young ones. And this is one that is unable to fly. And this is a snapshot from a video I took, because it's really hard to get what's going on with his wing. And I suspect it was a developmental issue, or maybe something happened when he was young. But every day his family goes and flies now. So his little brothers and sisters are taking trips with mom and dad. And then they actually come back every day and visit the property. But when they fly away, he runs with them and tries to fly, and then he cries because he can't take off. So he goes to the pond and sulks. And oftentimes he'll even walk away from the group that's in formation when they're on the ground with his head sulked, like he's in trouble, and walks into the pond by himself. It's really sad to me.
But
So I just would like to comfort him.
okay, but he can swim okay?
Yes, he's fine otherwise. He can flap his wings, he can walk, he can swim fine. It's just it looks like his right wing has a developmental issue there.
Like it's
So he
bent?
could stay on my property. Yeah.
And you
And
said
he's totally welcome to stay here.
and you
What's
said
that?
ducks or something?
Yes, I have two. We had two neighbors who moved away and they had pet ducks and they just like their ducks came to my property and made themselves at home. So I have two backyard ducks that he hangs out with during the day.
Okay, so he does hang out with them. So I'm gonna have
Yeah.
you, since I don't think he has a name, unless you've named him.
I guess I call him Goosey every day.
We'll call him Goosey. And I'm going through you though to him. I don't, it's hard sometimes to do wild animals. But let me,
Mhm.
as you have a connection to him, see if I can access Goose.
So sorry.
Okay, so he agreed to talk to me. So I just asked him if his wing causes him pain sometimes. Okay. So there's some despair, gonna clear that. And rejection, clearing that. Lost, clearing that. Frustration and depression. Oh, they're nice. Again, I'll talk about a shift, and that's when I feel that they're flowing. So I'm gonna communicate to him that he's welcome to be a member of your flock, to use his terminology, and the ducks call them adopted friends, and that you will help watch over him
Mm.
if his family goes. He has a safe, so this is his safe place, and even if his family leaves, hopefully they'll come back in a year or so, or
Yeah.
whatever, if they come back. So he asked if he'd ever be able to fly, and I don't think so. And I kind of feel like a numbness, a kind of pain coming down like my forefinger. So that would be equivalent to that part of his joint at that part.
Mm.
There's some arthritis.
Mhm.
I don't know if I don't want to call it arthritis, but probably some nerve issue because of that bent wing. Almost like he's had his wings clipped in that one area, but yeah, probably getting out the egg, or I don't know. He was born that way. So again, I'm just reiterating with him, he's safe with you. Um, and it's not his fault. But he can enjoy a good life, living where he's at. And he's got buddies to hang out with, other.
Mm.
So I suspect these birds don't stay all year. Are these
Well, some are migratory, although there are, I mean, I'm in a place of California where a lot of them don't go anywhere. So I'm hoping they just stay here and pond hop because it's the temperature where it doesn't get too cold.
um, well, I can't guarantee that his family stay there, but either way, he's got a family. He's got more family than the others do. He's got two families. An adopted family that
Mhm.
loves and cares about him, and then he's got his other family. So there's a little bit and sadness about that, but I feel like he's accepting it a little bit more. Uh, wants to keep trying, but I told him I don't believe it's gonna happen. So he can now just kind of be adjusted to this new situation for the rest of his life like that. So see how he does.
Yeah.
Again, he might need a
Okay, thanks.
more clearing. He seemed to understand it and accept it. I did feel that energy.
That's great.
That's usually when they say, "Oh, okay." They understand because there's
Yeah,
about it.
we got okay. We got a fountain for the pond this weekend. It's to clear the algae, but he has been loving that, and he's kind of been sitting there with letting the fountain fall on him, and it's kind of therapeutic. When they leave, he goes to the fountain and lets it fall on him. So
Oh,
it's
good.
been nice. So with the clearings, I think it'll be good to see his change.
Well, let me know if I'd be curious to see. And does it just seems more accepting.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let's see. Okay, so there were some, you might check the chat because there were some comments to you on about your cute geese and about you and taking care of them. All right, so I want to keep going because I've got a lot to get to. How about Karen? Because you contacted me a while ago. You can unmute yourself and let me get the picture of your
He's here, or you could even get him directly.
Okay. Either.
No, you can do the picture too. Joe.
And his name?
Joe.
All right, here's Joe, for others to see. And you emailed me that he's got a bit of an aggressive issue. So this is what perfect for tonight's topic. You were one of the ones that reached out to me. So why don't you let us know a little bit of his background so then I can clear and see what we can do for you.
He's a border collie. He's about 8 now. I got him when he was 2.5. He's a rescue. Don't know much about what happened to him for those 2.5 years. I think for 8 months of that time period, the last 8 months, he was with a woman who rescued mostly border collies and then trained some of them to be herding dogs. I think he may have been and she started him on cattle. He may have herded before, but I don't know. And he, when I got him, he was afraid of everything. He wouldn't come out of his crate. He wouldn't, every single noise, every people, bikes, cars, anything, you name it. He was really afraid of them. And he's better now about that, but he has this weird, he's fearful and he has anxieties. And sometimes he bites out of anxieties and he only bites me. He's never really bitten anybody else. And then he also has a really weird thing that he does where he'll bite me out of the blue. I mean, there's nothing. The first time he ever bit me, we were backpacking. It was a beautiful day. We were in an open forest. There was no scary things around us. And he just turned around, ran at me full speed and jumped up and bit me totally out of the blue. So I actually think he has a screw loose because he does that kind of biting and he does the kind of anxiety biting, which I can understand that, but the other one I don't understand at all.
So he bites up high then and not just at your feet or?
Oh no, he'll jump up. I'll usually, put my arm up. So mostly it's my arm that gets bitten.
But it's not lower.
No.
Okay. So that is different. Because a herding dog tends to nip at the feet.
Yeah, and he can nip, like a herding dog would, but that's different than what he does. Definitely.
A chomping bite.
Yeah.
Okay.
And other than that, he's not like, when you talk about aggressive dogs, I don't think of him as aggressive. It's not like he is like this. It's like he has I'm seriously, it's really like he has a screw loose and he just kind of flips out sometimes. It's just weird.
You, and are you the main person that takes care of him?
Yes, I am.
So I know this is screwy, but in his mind, it's protecting you from something he perceives. Believe it or not, it's like you're his flock. And
Am
he,
I his flock? Or sometimes I feel like he expects me to protect him from things and I'm not doing my job. Sometimes that's the way I feel.
it could be, it could be a little of both.
Mhm.
Afraid, and again, he could be hearing something that we're not. So when you're hiking, it seems all is great here, but he could hear a noise or sense something, smell something that he isn't familiar with, that we don't see. It could have been something that passed over the path, within
Right.
hours, and he's picking up the smell of it, and he's going, "Oh no, this is bad. This is scary stuff." And you're about to walk into it. We need to stop. And I don't know if he may not be giving you any clear signals. He might just be reacting really fast and then turn and jump on you and bite because he's like, nope, we can't go any further. This is bad. Uh, and why aren't you hearing? Why don't you sell? And he thinks, why, we're so stupid that don't you smell that?
Yeah, right. Definitely. I'm sure he thinks that.
Right. And so the pet is, that isn't that uncommon in some animals that sense things, and they totally think we're stupid because we're going straight
Because we are compared to them.
a whole lot different senses than us, and we
Yeah.
don't understand their language necessarily that's saying this is bad. um and we keep going, then some of them will give us more clues before they react, and it sounds like his reaction is much faster. And I don't know if he's giving you, because you say all of a sudden he's turning and jumping on you, there's either you're not seeing the body language that says oh, or the is really fast, and then he turns and he bites. So there's no time for you to see that whatever his danger warning is. And that's probably closer to the truth. He's got a very fast fuse, and then he reacts. So I don't know, how often does he do the biting thing? Do you know?
Well, there were I do see some of his, and I'll know sometimes when it's really going to come. But how often, that for a while he was getting much better. So it was maybe once every 4 months. But lately, all of a sudden, he's gotten a lot worse. And I really don't know why.
Well, okay, so let me tap in again. And he said he's about 8. So he's starting to lose a little bit of sight and hearing, maybe even his sense of smell, which is making him more nervous. Because and this, when you start losing some of your senses, it can sound different. So it's kind of a different noise that he's hearing, which is
Mhm.
anxious. It could be the same truck that has passed past your house, a garbage truck that's passed your house umpteen times, whatever, every week. But now his hearing started to change, so it sounds a little bit different. So all these noises that he was kind of used to are like all of a sudden new sounds. Does that make sense? So I think his anxiety is coming up because he's starting. I don't know how extensive his these senses are diminishing, but I believe he's beginning to start losing them. So let me tap into him. I'm going to try clearing stuff. I'm going to recommend, and this is good for all of you folks, to check out T-Touch. And once I,
Oh, yeah. I've done that. I did that with llamas.
okay, do
Yeah,
that.
it's great.
Start introducing that calming chemical into him. And I would do it really slowly and carefully with him, because even that change of putting in the good chemicals, which is a calming chemicals, can actually make him a little more anxious in the beginning. So just do it nice and slow and gentle. Go to places that he really likes to be touched. And what I do is alternate between petting and doing T-touches with my dogs. So I'm introducing those calming chemicals regularly, and it creates that more Pavlovian response. And especially for these more high-strung, fearful dogs, or cats, or whatever the species is, it's they they live mostly in that adrenaline world because they're always hyper vigilant. That's just kind of their nature too. So they don't know how to turn on the calming system. So we have to kind of teach it to them. So putting in that T-touch, that kind of helps you get some of that threshold that I was talking about, on a day-to-day basis. When you do it regularly for them, it just kind of help keep those calming chemicals into their system versus always having the adrenaline going through them. So that it releases a different chemical reaction into their body, which is triggering their calming system, their parasympathetic response system. And for these, especially border collie, I don't care, even a one that doesn't have their screw loose, they're really hyper. So teaching them to have kind of a chill time out really helpful. It's really helpful to them. So since you already know how to do it, start doing it on him as soon as you can. Just start doing that calming. I think that will help. So let me try releasing some of the trapped emotions. And then once you can kind of get in that separation, again, T-touch is I don't know if there's any T-touch practitioners around that work with dogs, that you might check their website out, because they have some really good modalities in modifying their behavior. And I don't know I don't know what those are, those techniques. It's about keeping them in balance and building their confidence, but there's something about keeping them in balance. I'm getting the chills, so that's the right information to tell you. There's something that you want to get him in balance more. And we definitely need to clear a lot of trapped emotions out. Just from his background before you got him, he's gotten tons of trapped emotions. And the fact that he was so fearful about everything, he didn't get exposed to normal life experiences.
Yeah, I don't think he was socialized at all.
So that's 2 years of trapped emotions that have built up, plus you teaching him what normal day-to-day life is. That was a lot of trapped emotions, even though you so he's got a
I think torture might be a better word for it.
yeah
Dog torture.
guys, he really loves you. I can tell, I can feel how much he loves you. And it's again, part of it is he's trying to protect you, but also upset that you don't know that there's a danger out there. So I'm releasing some fear. There's lots, and there's layers of it, but I'm releasing that. Unsupported, clearing that. Defensiveness, clearing that. Stubbornness. Is he stubborn?
Yeah, he can be stubborn.
Clearing that.
It's a border collie trait.
Yeah. Abandonment, clearing that. Helplessness, clearing that. Lack of control, clearing it. It's way of trying to get control under the situation too. And I'm going to communicate it to him. I want to get in there and talk to him about no bites. And I need to word it right, because we don't want to use the word bite because they don't hear the word no. Uh, I'm trying to find the word that he's willing to accept. Um, I'm going to use the word off. Off. When you get afraid, off. Off mom. So I'm telling him when he gets afraid, what we want him to do is come sit in front of you. If he perceives a danger, I want him to sit in front of you. Kind of at in a 90-degree angle, not facing you, but 90 degrees out. So his face can turn left or right. So he can see, hopefully still see or hear better, whatever he perceives as a threat. And that would be his warning to you that there's something he's afraid of. And I don't know if he'll do it, and that's what I'm picturing to him of how we want him to help you understand that he's afraid of something. Is that he comes and sits in front of you at a 90 degree. He's going to not look right at you, but at a 90 degree, and not fully at whatever he's afraid of either. I want him to sit at least at a 90 degree. So I'm picturing that to him. So that he can help teach you that there's something scary out there. No. So he's still going, mean she doesn't know? I know, but she doesn't. And he said, oh. So I'm just describing it to him that two-leggers aren't good at that. And he said, yeah, that's true. Okay. But again, I don't know if, I suspect highly that our quick little session may not be the cure-all, but, and again, because it doesn't happen on a daily basis, it's kind of going to be hard for you to judge, other than hopefully you just see him being a little calmer, more relaxed. If you start seeing him being a little more anxious and upset, that's usually a good sign that says, okay, we should clear some more stuff out. But again, he's over that threshold. And again, that's just because one, being a border collie, but two, having the background that he had. And then we've had 8 years of him really solidifying this behavior.
Mhm.
So that's a lot to train out on an 8-year-old dog.
Yeah.
But we can do our best. But I definitely look up T-Touch. I think that could be a good outlet for you. And then have you tried, I don't know, some of the calming, I don't know, I would be concerned about trying any pharmaceuticals on him, because that can make him more anxious, actually. Anything that makes his mind feel fuzzy is going to make him more anxious. So if we were to recommend an essential oil or anything like that, it needs to kind of be a slow introduction to allow him to build up to accepting it,
Mhm.
helping him to be more clear about it. But anything that changes his system too much will he'll probably be more fearful. Changes in border collies, changes in Aussies, they don't handle change. They're kind of autistic like.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Definitely very autistic like. And that's probably a lot why he's reacting the way he is. It's just think of an autistic child that has something new or scary to them. They react strongly. They can react really strongly. And that's what
He is not an adaptable dog.
No.
He's my third border collie, and yeah, he's really different from the other two.
He's on the extreme scale. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the extreme.
And I don't even think he could handle being a working dog, because he's just too extreme. He could he could no, he wouldn't work out that way either. Okay, thank you. He was a good one for this topic, so thank you. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email.
Okay, thank you.
We only got through 2 and we're almost at the top of the hour. So let's see if we can get one more in. Let's see, who do we have? What can we see? See your name here. Summer.
Yes,
Okay, let me see. I have Happy.
yes, you do.
Cutie Pie. Here's Happy. So tell me about Happy.
So Happy is a 2-year-old pit bull type mix. She has a tripod. We adopted her when she was about 3.5, 4 months old. And she has always had kind of a food aggression guarding kind of issue with her food, which we've worked with and we worked through it and we accept it. And, she lets us get close to her, but we just don't take it away from her. But her aggression has developed into being very, very aggressive with my husband when he leaves for work. When he comes into the bedroom in the mornings, she'll stand on the bed and bark and growl at him. And now she's gotten to the point where if she's laying on the couch, I can walk up to her and pet her and she'll start growling at me. And there's no, I can't find a pattern to it. We've tried leaving the lights on. We've tried, redirecting her when she gets like that and saying, come on, let's go outside, and changing the subject and things like that. And nothing seems to work.
So it's just a different form of resource guarding. She's protecting her turf, what she perceives as her turf, which is
The
not
whole
accurate.
house.
So again, she's a definite case where you definitely want to find a good trainer that can read her and understand what she's trying to communicate, give you some techniques to help modify that and change that mindset, so that, because right now she's receiving what she wants, which is, you're not going near her because she's growling probably, right? And even though you're
Well,
direct her, whatever you're redirecting her to isn't enough of a reward.
So can you tell me why she all of a sudden started it with me, just like overnight? We've had her for 2 years, and with my husband, it was kind of constant, but with me, it was just like overnight. She just started it.
Well, remember that threshold I was talking about? And she's over that
Mhm.
threshold. And it's expanding now, her turf, and she's growing her turf of what she's deciding is hers.
Right.
Doesn't want anybody in that area. So whatever, it just think of it as that resource guarding thing. So if she's on the couch and she doesn't want you there, then she's using that behavior. And it's unfortunately, it was one of those that it doesn't necessarily just, once she does this one thing, that's all it's going to be. She's learning that this is working for her. This behavior is working. So now she's expanding and experimenting on where's the next thing that I want to protect myself from. Or
Right.
also probably more defensive because she's a tripod. So defensiveness, acquiring that. Sometimes there's an ache in that leg, so that can make her feel more defensive, because kind of like an arthritic pain at times. So when she's feeling more vulnerable, then she's just more protective around herself. You know how she lost her leg?
I do. Is she telling you how she lost it?
No.
No. Yeah, she was part of an abuse case from our local police department, and her former owner abused her.
So again, well, that makes sense then, because then she's just more defensive because of that experience. So that's an important thing for me to clear out, that abuse, fear, pain. trauma, releasing trauma, abandonment, helplessness. So there's a lack of trust because of that experience, even though it's kind of oh, and it was a male that abused her.
Yes, it was.
So that's partly why she doesn't trust your husband, is that she doesn't necessarily trust males because of that experience. So I'll try and explain to her that your husband wants to love her. And that she's safe with him. She doesn't want to believe that yet. Okay, so so frustration. She was having some frustration with you, she says. I don't know over what, why she growled at you. Yeah, this one's a tough one. We need you want to, I'm glad you reached out, but we definitely need a team approach quickly so that you don't keep expanding out. She's got a wall around her of distrust.
Okay.
Yet, so we want to work with somebody that really gets her, that wants to bring out her gifts or her sweet side, because she just too insecure and afraid to fully let down her guard. So we have to build some confidence up. Trust. Trust keeps coming in. She just doesn't trust. She doesn't trust your husband. She doesn't fully trust you, partly because you haven't sent your husband away.
Well, unfortunately, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Does she trust her playmates?
Again, where I get a little nervous on this for the moment, yes. But if we don't interrupt this behavior, it could expand to them.
Okay.
So we definitely want to modify this behavior because it's starting to snowball.
Yes, absolutely.
We want to inhibit that. So I'm getting the chills again. So again, T-touch, look up T-touch. Get those chemicals in her. That I can't tell you it can be your best friend, but same thing. I only do them. I don't wait until they're in the moment of being upset. I do it when
Right.
they're relaxed and quiet and they want it. And if they get up and they don't want it anymore, I don't force it on them. I always
Mhm.
positive with them. So look up T-touch. It might also help make that injury feel better. The arthritis, doing that T-touch can move that energy around and it can take the discomfort, ease off that discomfort. And that can be part of it too. When she is hurting more, if that's achy, she just think when we're achy, we get more snappy. So
Right.
that's part of it too.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all for sharing. Sorry I didn't get to everybody, but I do have sessions open the next week or two. So I have a number of openings. So if you have something where you need a session for your pet, please book a session with me. I'll be happy to assist you. And I do these webinars about once a month, so you're always welcome and we'll give it a try again. So thank you for sending your pictures in. I really appreciate it. It's really helps a lot of, not just hopefully your own pet, but others that have similar issues. So thank you for sharing your cutie pies. And so with that, if anybody would like to reach me, you can reach me at cindy@beananimallistener.com, or my website is yourenergy.com. I'm going to stop the recording.